A small American apartment at dusk, soft orange light spilling through blinds. A woman sits alone on the edge of a bed, hands shaking, staring at a silent phone. Realistic, cinematic, moody lighting. It's 11:47 p.m. You're sitting on the edge of your bed, replaying every conversation you had today. Every word, every expression, every moment. You scroll through your messages, nothing. You refresh the screen, still nothing. That person you care about, the one you argued with this morning, the one who said, "I just need some time," has gone completely silent. No explanation, no closure, no acknowledgement of your existence. You try to distract yourself, but your brain keeps circling back to the same question. What did I do? Why am I being ignored? You text again, you apologize, you call, nothing. Just a cold, empty silence, the kind that makes your heart drop to your stomach. And as the hours turn into days, your mind begins to crumble. This isn't just distance. This isn't space. This isn't someone cooling off. This is the silent treatment. One of the darkest, most emotionally destructive tools of manipulation used in toxic relationships across America every single day. The kind that leaves no bruises, the kind that breaks you without ever touching you. Psychologists say the silent treatment is not just avoidance. It is behavioral control. It is a way to dominate, confuse, and weaken someone without ever raising a voice. Why? Because silence is a powerful weapon. It forces the human mind to attack itself. People often think manipulation is loud, that it's yelling, gaslighting, insults, threats. But in dark psychology, the most dangerous form of emotional abuse is the one no one can see. The pain that others will tell you to just get over, even though it's tearing you apart from the inside. Let's break down the psychology of the silent treatment, why people do it, how it affects the brain, and the red flags that people in the United States often ignore. Behavioral experts explain that the silent treatment is a power play. Those who use it create an emotional imbalance, and they know it. Here's the dark truth. When someone cuts off communication with no explanation, they aren't just ignoring you, they're forcing you to chase them. They want you to panic, overthink, blame yourself, try harder, apologize for things you didn't even do, because the more confused you become, the more control they gain. Think about it. In a normal, healthy conversation, both people express their feelings, but the silent treatment removes your voice from the equation completely. It leaves you feeling powerless, frozen, stuck in a loop of self-doubt. Real life example, you argue with your partner. Maybe you said something in frustration. Maybe you didn't even do anything wrong. Instead of talking it through, they suddenly disappear. No text, no call, no "hey, I need a moment," nothing. And now you're left trying to fix the entire problem by yourself, while they watch you unravel from a distance. This is not just emotional withdrawal. It is a way of saying, I control when you are seen. I control when you are heard. I control when you matter. It is psychological domination disguised as silence. The human brain is wired for connection. Neuroscience shows that silence from someone we emotionally depend on activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. This is why the silent treatment feels like your chest is tightening, why your stomach feels hollow, why your thoughts won't stop. It is not overreacting. It is your brain panicking. Psychologists say the silent treatment can trigger anxiety, hypervigilance, guilt spirals, self-blame, emotional withdrawal, feelings of worthlessness, because the brain tries to make sense of rejection. It tells you, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I deserve this, maybe they're right to ignore me. And once the mind begins to attack itself, the manipulator doesn't have to do anything. You destroy yourself for them. Real life example. A man in Texas told his girlfriend he felt unappreciated. Instead of responding, she blocked him to teach him a lesson. He spent days replaying the conversation, wondering if he was too emotional, too sensitive, too needy. But he wasn't. He was emotionally punished for expressing a basic human need, the need to feel valued. This is how silent treatment becomes psychological warfare. It turns your emotions against you. It conditions you to fear conflict. And eventually, it conditions you to fear expressing your feelings at all. And here's the darkest part. The silent treatment doesn't happen by accident. Not in toxic relationships, not in manipulative environments. There are deeper motives, deeper tactics, and deeper psychological damages that most people never see until it's too late. Why manipulators use silence as punishment, why the victim becomes emotionally dependent, how silence rewires your behavior, and why the silent treatment becomes a cycle you don't even realize you're trapped in. In dark psychology, the silent treatment is not random. It is not a momentary pause. It is not someone collecting their thoughts. It is punishment. Psychologists say that people who use silence as a weapon want to create emotional consequences for behaviors they disapprove of, even if those behaviors are normal, healthy expressions of emotion. This is how toxic individuals discipline people they claim to care about. But unlike physical or verbal punishment, the silent treatment leaves no evidence, no trace, nothing anyone can point at. That's what makes it so dangerous. Here's how the punishment works. You express a feeling, they emotionally vanish. You suffer in fear and confusion. They return when they decide you've learned your lesson. The more they do this, the more you begin to adjust your behavior out of fear of their silence, and eventually, you stop expressing yourself altogether. Real-life example, a woman in Ohio told her boyfriend she felt ignored when he went days without texting her. He responded by disappearing for a week. When he came back, he acted like nothing happened. He laughed. He joked. He treated her like she was crazy for being upset. But inside, she was shaking. She learned that expressing her emotions equals punishment. This is how manipulators train people, slowly, quietly, psychologically, without ever raising their voice. And the longer you're exposed to silent punishment, the more deeply it buries itself into your self-worth. Silent treatment is not just absence, it is psychological isolation. When someone removes their voice, your brain does something devastating. It replaces their silence with your self-blame. This creates isolation even when you're surrounded by people because the pain is internal, invisible, private. Behavioral experts explain that emotional isolation is one of the strongest predictors of anxiety disorders, low self-esteem, dependency, trauma, bonding. This is because isolation warps the brain's ability to evaluate reality. Here's what that looks like. You start believing you're the problem. You start believing you deserve the punishment. You start believing that silence is normal. This is the most dangerous part of the silent treatment. When you stop questioning their behavior and start questioning your own worth. Real-life example. A man in Florida said his partner would go silent for days anytime he set a boundary. Eventually, he stopped setting boundaries, not because he was wrong, but because the isolation was too painful to endure. Silent treatment doesn't just isolate you from the person you care about, it isolates you from yourself. Once the silent treatment becomes a pattern, something deeper happens, something subtle, something psychological, something that can shape your behavior for years. It becomes conditioning, similar to how animals learn through reward and punishment. Toxic individuals condition their partners, friends, or even family through silence. Here's the loop. You express a need, they punish you with silence. You feel desperate and anxious. They return only when you comply or apologize. Your brain learns. Don't upset them. Don't express yourself. Don't create conflict. Over time, this rewires you. It teaches you to stay quiet, to stay small, to avoid anything that could trigger their silence. Your nervous system becomes addicted to keeping the peace, even if that peace costs you your identity. Psychologists say this creates something called fear-based compliance. You no longer make choices freely. You make choices to avoid being emotionally abandoned. This is why so many people stay in toxic relationships, not because they're weak, but because their emotional survival has been rewired by silence. Real life example. A woman in California described her relationship like this: I stopped having opinions. I stopped telling him when I felt hurt. I stopped asking for anything, because every time I did, he disappeared, and I couldn't survive that silence again. Her story is not unique. It's painfully common. Silent treatment doesn't just hurt you, it changes you. This is where silent treatment becomes something far more dangerous than most people realize. It becomes a cycle of emotional addiction. Here's how it works. When the silent treatment begins, you feel fear, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of losing someone you care about. But when the silence ends, when they suddenly come back, when they finally acknowledge you again, your brain releases relief, a powerful emotional reward. That relief feels like connection, it feels like love, it feels like safety, but it's not love, it's trauma bonding. This creates a cycle: fear during the silence, emotional high when they return, attachment, deepened self, worth lowered, dependence increased, the same psychology behind gambling addiction, the same dopamine spikes, the same emotional roller coaster, except here. The casino is your relationship, and the prize you're chasing is basic human attention. Real life example. A man in Chicago said, when she ignored me, I felt like I was dying inside. But when she finally texted me again, even just hey, it felt like oxygen, like I could breathe. Again, this is the psychological trap of the silent treatment. And once you're caught in it, it becomes incredibly hard to recognize that the connection you feel is actually the aftershock of emotional starvation. So now, we understand the dark psychology behind the silent treatment. The power play, the punishment, the isolation, the conditioning, the emotional addiction. But here's the truth most people never hear. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You are not unworthy. And you are not alone. In the final part of this video, we'll explore how to break the psychological cycle, how to protect yourself emotionally, and how to heal from the invisible wounds that silent treatment creates. When we return, we talk about recovery, rebuilding, and reclaiming your voice, even after someone tried to shut it down. By now, you understand the silent treatment for what it really is: not a misunderstanding, not a moment of cooling off, but one of the most subtle and harmful forms of emotional control. But knowledge without healing is just awareness of your pain. So let's talk about what you can do, how you protect your mind, how you reclaim your voice, how you rise from the damage that silence created inside you. Because no one deserves to feel invisible. No one deserves to live in emotional fear. And no one deserves to mistake manipulation for love. The first step is one of the hardest. You must stop blaming yourself for someone else's emotional withdrawal. Their silence is a reflection of their emotional immaturity, not your worth, not your value, not your identity. Healthy people communicate. Healthy people express discomfort. Healthy people don't disappear to punish you. You did not cause their silence, they chose it, and once you accept that, their power over you begins to fade. When someone goes silent, your instinct is to chase, to fix, to restore peace. But chasing someone who is punishing you only deepens their control. It reinforces their belief that silence works. Instead, pause, breathe, step back. You deserve a relationship, romantic, family, or friendship, where communication is mutual, not one-sided. When you stop chasing, you take back your emotional power. Boundaries are not walls. They are rules for how you allow others to treat you. A simple, powerful boundary sounds like this: I don't accept silent treatment as a response. If something's wrong, we talk about it like adults. If they repeat the behavior, that is not a relationship. It is emotional manipulation wearing a mask. Boundaries don't push people away. They push away the people who were never meant to stay. Victims of silent treatment often try to win back the person hurting them. They try to prove they're worthy. They apologize excessively. They overcompensate. But you never negotiate with manipulation. You never fight for someone who uses abandonment as a weapon. Instead, you evaluate the relationship honestly. Does this person communicate? Do they take responsibility? Do they care about how their silence affects you? If the answer is no, the choice becomes painfully clear. Your peace is worth more than their presence. Silent treatment damages your inner narrative. It makes you believe you caused the distance. It makes you feel unworthy of communication. It makes you shrink. So healing requires reconnection. Reconnecting with your emotions, reconnecting with your needs, reconnecting with your voice, reconnecting with the parts of you that were silenced. Journaling helps. Talking to supportive people helps. Self-reflection helps. Therapy helps. Time helps. But the most powerful healing comes from this realization. You never deserved the silence that broke you. And the person who withheld it was never the person who could heal you. Eventually, there comes a day when your heart stops waiting for an apology that was never going to come. When you stop checking your phone, when the silence no longer feels like a verdict, when you realize the silent treatment didn't break you, it revealed you. It showed you what you will never tolerate again. It showed you the parts of yourself that are still standing, despite the psychological warfare you endured. And it showed you one truth you needed to hear. You were never hard to love. You were simply loving someone who didn't know how to communicate. Silence can wound you, but it can also wake you. It teaches you who values connection and who only values control. It teaches you that love is not found in punishment, and connection is not built on fear. And one day you will look back on the silence that once shattered you, and you'll realize it gave you something far more powerful. The strength to never let anyone dim your voice again. Fade out. Soft music, quiet breath, and a video.